to the doctor, to a clinic, to a government office, specifically food stamps. And people they want to go to, the women want to go to the beauty shop, they want to go to the grocery store, and we can't take them.
In other words, if you had, in terms of all of the inquiries that you might get, Mrs. Brandon, if you had to work out some kind of transportation plan that would basically take into consideration some of the needs of the people that the people have expressed to you, what kind of plan would that be in terms of trying to reach some people? Could you do that by perhaps subsidizing the transportation system to accommodate the elderly population, or what?
In one sense, that's what special transportation is, a subsidized service of MTA.
But that's too short.
It's not big enough. Now, MTA will take people wherever. Their emphasis is on taking people to work and getting them home, or to a dialysis clinic, and there's a big demand for that, or to one of the sheltered workshops.
And what about daycare and that kind of activity, recreation? There's practically no recreation transportation for the elderly.
MTA can do that, but usually just at night. Or at very odd hours during the day, because they're limited, and the other claims are admittedly more important.
Very good. Ms. Askew, in terms of some of the things that ought to be done dealing with the elderly population that you're working with, what are some of the things that you would suggest in view of the fact that we're in a recessionary economy and that money is tight and et cetera? What are some of the practical things that we might be able to do to improve the lives of our elderly population?
We would want to continue to look closely at the health care policies that are being presented and are going to be passed. We would also, I guess, want to give, at least here in the city of Nashville, more attention to transportation needs. Of course, those medical needs in terms of transportation would come before recreational needs, but in the same sense, those needs need to be addressed. We also need to look at housing, affordable housing. A lot of times what we find is if an individual, I think one thing that stands out the most to me is an intermediate type of care housing that would not entail a person necessarily having to be in a nursing home because they were no longer able to cook for themselves or administer their own meds. Right now, I think what the limited options would be either to live with a family member that could provide that, a nursing home, or maybe what we call foster care home situation. And a lot of the elderly do not choose that. They want to remain independent. So if we had some type of housing situation where they could live in efficiency apartments alone, and maybe you had a particular unit that was responsible for making sure those meds were given as they were prescribed, and they could come together at certain times of the day for mealtime, but still maintain their own independent living quarters, something like that. Housing is another big issue. Those three things, I think, for starters. And also probably, when we look at our health care bill, we don't only just think in terms of physical needs, but mental needs. Because if one is not mentally as well as physically fit, then life is almost not worth living. But we need to compensate, give a little bit to both, and help to improve the quality of life for them.
Very good. I think one thing, finally, Ms. Brandon, when we talk about the elderly population, I don't think we've said anything about some of the problems that might be faced by the disabled part of that population, and Congress has recently passed legislation to deal with that. What impact do you find that having on what you do, Ms. Brandon?
And there are a number of additional calls for help with building ramps, but then we have an office which is part of this services for the elderly of disability information. And probably the one that I get most calls about are handicap parking stickers. How do they get them, and why does this store have 17 handicapped places where this one, which has more traffic, only has 2?
And of course, all of those things will be addressed in the, are addressed in the Disabilities Act, are they not? Yeah, I think.
The intent is to address them, but there is no answering why one store has 17 and another only has 2.
Very good. Okay, Mrs. Askew, finally, as we come to the end of this program today, what are some of the final things that you think in terms of the elderly population that you might do, that D.D. Wallace is presently doing in order to improve your services to the elderly population?
Currently, we are in a period in progress of trying to an outreach program where we can reach more people to pull them into the services that we provide. If we can't assist, we always try to find the appropriate referral place, and we do use
Yes, you do.
MBrandon services quite a bit because some of the needs, especially in terms of daycare, is limited. And the type of individuals that we would serve, or a person that could truly benefit from our services, if we're not able to accommodate them, which 9 times out of 10 we are, but sometimes people, just because they have been given our names and know that we do service the elderly, and they're not appropriate, then we do use the referral system. But I think...
Very good. Very good. Let me thank both of you as we wind it down today, Ms. Brandon, for coming by and giving us that information about the age population. I think that we've had 30 minutes, but I think many people have an idea about the kinds of misconceptions that people have toward the age population and some of the programs that are provided by D.D. Wallace as well as the mayor's office. And so I think with that, we've given the people just about everything that we could possibly give them within the time frame. And I know that the two of you are very, very busy, and we again want to thank the two of you for coming by and giving us that information.
It's been my pleasure.
Very good. And let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning.